figured out what we wanted to do. We wanted to talk about the movie series slash book series slash what have you, The Exorcist.
Yeah, and I had read The Exorcist, this bad boy.
Can you a little higher?
Yeah, this bad boy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And I went back and reread it just for this. And it's everything that it should have been.
Knowing how to
Because
read, humble brag.
it is spooky and a lot of things happen in it that get you ready for the actual movie. And we can watch it and we can do what we want, but nothing goes back to the original book with the original movie. So you got them both. And
You have a different version of the movie than I do.
well, there are multiple versions.
Oh, look at your cover. Oh, man. I wish I had brought my version of the movie in here. Yeah, that is I think I like my version's box art better. I have the original DVD
the original one
box art
with him standing there with when Father Merrin just shows up. That's the quintessential image that you think and you associate with The Exorcist.
Absolutely, it is.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the character, Father Merrin, but he makes everything about that, and that, of course, is what you associate with it. But I don't know. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk about everything in the lexicon of The Exorcist and then just go into the other movies. But
Okay.
So now that you've got to actually see the movie, I want to get your spin first before we go anything deeper.
So I first saw the film when I was but a wee lad, probably, most likely, definitely too young to have actually seen it. I think I was still in grade school when I first saw The Exorcist. Didn't think it was scary. You know the movie Beetlejuice?
Yes.
You know the line where it's like, I've seen The Exorcist 1,000 times and it keeps getting funnier every time I see it.
Yeah.
That was kind of my reaction as a kid. Like it didn't scare me. Like it didn't really make that much sense because I was 9 and trying to process a thing where it's like, what happens when you have no control over your body and self and actions? That's not a thing a 9-year-old can process. As an adult rewatching it, I think because I knew everything that was going to happen, it didn't really affect me that much.
And that's fair. But I think as horror films go, this is one of the OGs, along with another movie we're going to talk about later, Rosemary's Baby. These are the movies that really get you going about this. You know what's going to happen, but it builds up. And at the end, with the way that the exorcism happens, and Father Merrin has a heart attack and dies, and Alex Karras does the ultimate salvation.
By the by, anyone out there tuning in that has not watched The Exorcist or its sequels, spoiler alert, because it's a 40, 50-year-old movie.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it yet, get to it. Pause this. Come back later.
So yeah. Anyway, you are so right. So anyway, yeah. Well, Father Karras, he basically, it's the sacrifice, almost like the Christ sacrifice, because he gives up his life to save Regan's life, and it's just what makes this movie so powerful.
I mean, in a way, there's a double sacrifice.
Yeah. But Father Merrin was at his end. He was had heart problems. And if you remember the line where he's talking to Reagan's mom, Chris, and she asks him if he wants alcohol, and he goes, my doctor says no, but my will is weak. My heart is weak. And where he was at with his heart, that just basically was a clincher. It was going to take him a little much closer. He's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And he's at the end.
So I think I think we're talking about the big movements of the movie / book / story, but we're not actually talking about the nitty gritty, the subtext. I don't know.
What, the exorcism?
Yeah, the movie The Exorcist, the first movie, the first book, the story that it is.
Yeah, it's a really good story. And what I want to say briefly is, we'll talk about this if we ever revisit, but William Peter Blatty, a devout Jesuit, based this whole story on an exorcism that happened in the 1940s in Maryland Park, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis. And I talked to somebody recently that was fascinated with all this. And we talked in the first episode that there's going to be a reboot from the guy who did Halloween. And like the Halloween, this is going to be a trilogy where he's looking to revisit the whole thing. And he's going to have a male character, which is more accurately aligned with what actually happened in the 1940s.
So real quick, have you actually researched the original case?
I have done a little bit of research.
What can you share with the class about that?
So, enough to know that, it happened, like I said, in Maryland Park. And William Peter Blatty researched it to with the priests going on and everything. I don't know what happened to the priests and stuff, and I'm going to do a little more research when we actually revisit exorcism, because after we watch the movies, I want to look at more of what's going on in real life. But I like the fact, knowing now, because the other movies that I wanted you to watch that we didn't get to, Emily Rose, The Rite, and one that just came out recently, The Pope's Exorcist. So many of these movies are based on real, actual exorcisms that happened either here or in Europe that are real.
Okay.
So, yeah, I just enough research to get that it was real and that he had a basis for making this. And if I think the guy who's doing the reboot has any salt, he's going to stay true to the story as well. But we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. We'll find out.
So I feel that from what you said, that you might have been a little bit disappointed. So when you watch The Exorcism, if you didn't read the book like I did, you're going to just have a little bit of something's left. And that's why I want to talk a little bit about this, because there are things that make the movie better if you read the book.
For real quick, before you get into that, I feel like it's time for Charles to his love of cinema, and if we're going to get into what makes the book fix it, I feel like if you're watching a movie or a TV show or something that is a visual medium in which you're trying to understand a story, you don't need to, have to, want to, shouldn't consult third-party material such as the book. I should go into a movie and just start the movie, finish the movie, and understand what happened, and be okay with what happened in the sense that I understood it and that it made sense and it's a cohesive story.
Yeah.
The Exorcist has two different storylines, which sometimes isn't a bad thing, but they did little to actually bring them together. It was just more of a, oh, hey, here's this person, boom, 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 ignore that person. Here's this person, boom, 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 boom. They might, no, boom, boom. Okay, now they're just together. But they didn't actually do any time building that relationship or merging the two storylines into a cohesive thing that made me feel like it was like thought out. You know, it was just a like, oh, you've got this guy. He's the one who knows all the things. We've got this guy. He's the one who's going to be the person on the streets. We got this girl. Sucks to be her.
So fair.
And then they were just like, and throw it in a blender and hit go. And then there's pea soup all over the place.
Yeah. And like, it's the thing. If you had not read the book, you would not.
Which I didn't.
No. So you would not know that Father Marin, has a vendetta and an experience with this demon. And if it,
so
if you didn't read the book, you wouldn't understand, like, as deeply understand that part that's in the middle, at the beginning of the movie, with him in Iraq. He's in northern Iraq, and these are just real places. And from what I understand, watching some of the commentary from the director, a real demon, and he gets up and he looks at the very end of that whole sketch at that demon. It's Pazuzu. He's looking at it. And we learned that name in subsequent movies.
Alert.
Yeah, but that is what you're supposed to know. And there's so many other things that don't make sense. Like if
in the movie, they just show a statue. They show a statue of a demon-looking thing, and they do a close-up. They got that weird flash cut that like takes a fraction of a second, and then we're just back to storyline B.
Yeah,
that's it.
And the way that it's explained in the book, you get it because he's like, he realizes that he's about to have a standoff with this demon, and when he shows up in the movie, it clearly goes with that. And in the book, he's working on another novel or another book about whatever as a cat, and he's at this retreat, and they just show you in the movie, he just slowly, they come up to him and they give him the letter to tell him to go there. This is all supposed to have taken almost a year between the Iraq and that, because in the book, everything that happens to Reagan, they show you briefly in the movie going to some kind of clinic that's actually, I think, somewhere in Ohio, and they're in Washington, D.C. So this is taking months and months and months, her progression of what's going on in the case of the development of her possession. It makes more sense in the book than it does in the movie because it's kind of chopped up, and I feel that's something that you're kind of leading to, because in the movie they don't have as much time to develop the friendship between Kinderman, the detective who's investigating everything, and Father Karras. His crisis of faith.
I mean, I'm sorry, but that's a thing that takes a scene. If it's written well and they just shoot it and pace it correctly, you have that friend show up who are like, Andrew, let's do some improv real quick here. Like, follow me on this. Hey, it's been a while. I'm glad to see you again. How have you been?
Yeah, and
no, we're doing some improv real quick.
How are you doing there, sir?
I've been struggling. I'm glad you're here because I've been wanting to talk to you.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're here, and we can actually talk about these things because we get to talk about exorcism, and that's beautiful.
So as a priest, I have been struggling, and it's been hard for me. I'm a man of faith, and I'm still devout, but it's been difficult.
Yeah, I understand because you're fighting the good fight and everything. So just hang in there because you can do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What's going on with you?
I'm basically just rolling through. I'm into craft beer, and I'm just thinking about you.
So, but you're a detective, right?
Yes.
A detective.
No, I actually like movies. Do you want to go see one?
Yeah, let's go see one.
Yeah.
Why not?
Because
no.
And that's the thing about Kinderman is he is constantly inviting Karras to see movies, and you get that in the sequel Legion with Dyer, who is if you remember when they go to the party that Reagan's mom's throwing, the life of the party, that is a younger priest named Dyer who will play a part in a later movie because he's actually friends with Father Karras, who is actually a psychologist who comes to Georgetown because he's having a crisis of faith. And the book deals with his whole crisis of faith. And you don't really get to see everything in the movie because there's just not time. And I realize it could be developed and it could have been done a little quicker.
Yeah,
and
I mean, it doesn't take that long. I think we just illustrated that point. Like, it's just boom, boom,
so
boom.
Blatty wrote
the
screenplay and the books, so he had time to develop that, and he just didn't. And
I mean, you got to start somewhere. Was this Blatty's first screenplay?
It was one of it. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. That's fine. I mean, for its time and place, I'm pretty positive that, like, 1970s, that was probably one of the best horror films
Yeah.
that had been made at that point. If that's someone's first draft and everything, fuck yeah, dude, you nailed it. But I'm at a vantage point where I've had a lifetime of movies to watch, and I got some notes because I've seen people do it better. Doesn't fault it for its time though.
It's fine. It was his own work that he was
adapting.
He was adapting, but it's like you don't realize that he doesn't go into detail about the heart problems that Marin was having, and in the book, when he has a heart attack, the demon is like thinks that, oh, this is cheap. This is a cheap way to go. So you don't realize all what's going on. Like, for instance, the demon was really, really threatening Reagan's life. And you don't get that they have to end the exorcism because they're trying to keep her heart from going out and her having blood pressure and her having a heart attack.
Oh, they did not show that at all
no.
in the movie.
Yeah, it's like they're monitoring. They're monitoring all
you.
her things, and I've watched a lot of exorcism movies where they're monitoring the vitals because this is beautiful and this is important to saving this person, is because the demon is stretching the limits of that body and is causing it to go to the brink, and that happens in the book, and you don't really see that so much in the movie, or like I said, the crisis of faith, or how he comes back, or since we're going to talk about in a second, Legion. Anything that would make you believe that his body was in a situation that could be later possessed.
Spoiler alert.
Second time.
We've watched the original trilogy of The Exorcist 1, 2, and 3.
And I have also seen the prequels, and we'll talk about that in a second.
I did what I would like to call the Exorcist version of Machete Order, which, if you're a Star Wars fan, there is a correct way to watch the entire series. And as someone who has watched Star Wars, and I say that as in, all of it, Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Ahsoka will be out, and that will be where I'm catching up. I have seen all 3 trilogies, and the Machete Order is the correct order, and you can just stop there because it doesn't matter. But the Machete Order for the Exorcist series is 1 and 3.
I don't
disagree. And then you
stop.
stop. And then that's it. Because I then watched 2. And that's why I'm drinking.
Yeah. The Exorcist number 2, which is also called Heretic.
It's a heretic into the Exorcist series.
Yeah. And
it's a self-aware title.
So my problem is someone who actually also enjoys the prequels. And I'm going to talk about this in a second because there's not one, but 2 prequels. And this is interesting of itself. But they don't fit well with the backstory in the second one.
I feel like we need to wrap up the first movie book.
No, you're right, but that just goes into there.
We have some thoughts. I'll just say that we have a lot of thoughts, in particular about number 2. Are there some thoughts? Yeah, but back to The Exorcist, back to the movie, back to once you get the party together, though. Once you make that happen, once you get the magic, damn, is that movie good.
It is.
That is creepy, that is eerie,
and there are many versions of this you can watch.
And the exorcism is intense.
Yeah. It's intense. There's a reason. This is the movie that so many people consider the best horror film ever.
You know what? I'm going to be right back. Rosemary's Baby?
Yeah. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. All right. So I mentioned this, Exorcist 3, but Andrew keeps holding up the first Exorcist movie, but I'm sorry.
That is the OG cover.
That is the good cover.
Father Marin coming in there. You see that. You stop. You want to see that because he's looking at that. He knows what's about to happen. There's apprehension because he's knowing he's about to meet his maker.
Yeah. This conveys the vibe the overall like feel of the film in one still frame. And it's not the memeable like Reagan that's on the cover of Andrews. Yeah, it's in the back of mine. We know what it's from. We know what it is.
Yeah.
But that's the good cover. That is the thing that you see that
instead of the demon on the book.
Oh, can I see the book?
Yeah.
That's a demon?
That's supposed to be a demon just doing stuff. That always scared me. In fact, I put when I read that book in the 90s.
Is that the head? Is
yeah.
that the face? That's the face?
Yeah, I put a Post-it over it because it was scary. That's
supposed to be scary?
It's scary enough if you're 12 when you're reading it.
See the movie. It's the most electrifying thing that will ever happen to you.
Yeah. And like I said, he wrote the screenplay, he wrote the book. They work.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. It's and you don't want this. But I think the movie is so much better if you read it. But not everybody is like me that's going to read everything.
I don't feel like you should have to. I feel like you should.
You shouldn't. But when they have stuff online that says everything that makes the movie better if you read it, I'm just saying.
I don't care. Like, I'm sorry. As like, okay, Star Wars Episode 7 could have been a good movie if you read the comic books.
Yes.
If you read the expanded like novelization, if you did X, Y, and Z. But that kind of mindset doesn't really work.
No. You didn't have to read The Lord of the Rings to enjoy the movies. You didn't have to read Harry Potter to enjoy the movies. Enough said.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it for me. Yeah, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's fantastic.
You didn't have to read a book for that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully you don't have to read a book for the new one.
Yeah. What new one?
There's a new Indiana Jones coming out.
They made Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, and The Lost Crusade.
And
that's it.
Okay.
That's the three.
All right. I will agree to not care. But there's a new one coming out.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. I'm confused.
Be confused. I've seen the previews multiple times.
I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't make any sense.
I just think because
Harrison Ford is ancient.
Because the Crystal Skull was so bad, you don't want to even accept this.
What is like the vodka? The vodka line that Dan Aykroyd knows? That's what are you talking about? Why is that
they're not
relevant?
horror films, so we'll just shut up.
All right. So moving on. I don't know what Andrew's talking about. It's fine. So yeah, the movie is solid. It's good. It's an excellent watch.
Yeah.
It's a builder. It builds. It starts off kind of eerie and creepy, and then it takes a dip, but then it builds back up.
Mm-hmm. And the actual exorcism is still as good as most of the movies that depict this, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You have a deep, dark battle between good and evil, and it's still one of the best exorcisms in any movie.
I'll agree with that. Out of the trilogy, it is the best one. That the exorcism in the first film is the best. It's fucked up. It's creepy. It's weird. It's intense. You get put off. Yeah.
And having watched another 24 movies, I've only seen a few things that rival it. And one of them that I will talk about later, only because 50 years later, they should be able to do special effects that much more effective.
Let's hope. I mean, practical effects are still the best effects, but
yeah,
digital has its place.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess that's our take on The Exorcist. Hot take. It's a scary movie.
Yeah. It's scary. I just wish I could say the same thing about the second one.
Let's talk about the third one.
You want to talk about the third one
Let's
first?
talk about the third one first.
So, first of all, the third one.
Yeah, the
third one is actually also from the
wrong
that's
case.
funny.
Wrong
So
case.
I'm pulling this up because it was also written, the screenplay, by the writer William Peter Blatty, based on his book Legion. While I was not as impressed with this book, I don't think it's as good as the original. Apparently, because there's about to be a reboot, they are reissuing this book. And it's in all sorts of forms, which I'm sad because I did the exact opposite. I saw the movie and then I read the book. And the book did not excite me the same way the third movie did.
Yeah, the third movie, personal opinion, personal thing here. Not trying to judge anyone for disagreeing with me on this, and you're entitled to your opinion. But third movie might be best movie.
Yeah, it might be.
The
It might be.
plot's really fucking good. The pacing is good.
It's really good.
The editing is good. The story is cohesive. My complaints about this thing, not there. This, as a film, real fucking good.
Yeah.
Really fucking good.
Because you got everything. You got a really scary story. You've got a connection to everything. And then in the 11th hour, the Exorcist shows up and you get a really decent exorcism.
And the thing that I brought up to Andrew that he confirmed to me, there is a comment in the first film about a priest in South America that does an exorcism and this and that. And they kind of just move past it. And then they bring it back up in the third film. And then, you know what? That guy shows up. What? That's a nice little through line in the two movies. Like, they are connected. It is a direct sequel. You don't have Reagan coming back. You have, again, we already said spoilers, so too bad. Father...
That is Father Dyer, and then
yeah, Damien Dyer, right?
No, Damien Karras, and this
Damien Karras shows back up. He jumps out of a window in the first film to his death, only to show back up, and the demon directly says that they had to rebuild his brain, and I appreciate that.
And you get it because they were all but burying him, and this priest was watching over the body. And somehow there was some kind of mix-up, and they reanimated him, and it scared the heck out of the little priest who ends up in that casket, Father Fane, and he mentions Father Fane in the movie too.
Yeah, like it's the bad guy, the
demon,
the thing possessing Father Karras.
Yeah,
it's the same actor that played the voice of Chucky in the Child's Play films. That guy,
so cool,
is such a good bad guy. He is so good. He's always so fucking creepy. I loved him in Star Trek. I loved him in everything I've seen him in. Goddamn, does that fucker own a scene? He every time, because they start off that there's a detective and not a priest researching the whole scenario and trying to get to the bottom of this.
But he is the investigator from the first movie.
Yeah, and also
Kinderman.
He has been in a number of other movies. I first recognized him from Dr. Strangelove, where he played Colonel Jack Ripper.
Yeah,
and then
George C. Scott.
Yeah, and amazing actor. If you've seen Patton, this is not a direct sequel to that, but you know, I mean, the age progression would make you think it might be.
Yeah. Yay, Patton.
But
You've got this. You got his.
I know IMDb, and I know things I've also seen. That's all I got. But yeah, he is amazing in this film. There is not a bad actor in this movie. Actually, I'll take a step back real quick. There's not a bad actor in the entire series. I know I'm saying that Machete order this 1 and 3. Don't watch 2. I don't blame a single actor in 2. I don't think it's their fault. Watched it. They did an impeccable job. They came in. They were 110%. There's not a bad take. I don't think it's their fault. Don't watch that movie. Don't. We'll get to that later. We'll get to it.
We will.
But yeah, so he's a detective, and he is going through and is trying to solve a mystery about a killer where the murders are reoccurring, but the murderer was killed 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And they say that a lot.
They call him the Gemini Killer, which is a complete nod to the Zodiac Killer. And just to take this a little bit, because we're talking about the movie, not the book, but in the book, this Gemini Killer was operating in San Francisco, which is where the actual Zodiac killing was taking place. So everything that William Peter Blatty was basing on the Gemini Killer was just a correlation to the actual Zodiac Killer, which we may talk about at a later point.
Yeah, we might.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
We don't know. It's early. This is episode 2, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's pretty cool that it's going through that. And he died 15 years ago. But yet there are killings 3 quickly that go with it. And then we find out a crazy twist on everything.
Yeah, so our father Damien Karras is still alive and has lost his mind, living in the basement of a hospital. By when did this come out?
1990.
1990?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought it would have been like 1982.
It was written.
Wowzers!
It was written
alive
in
when that
83,
came
but
out.
it was written. He wrote the book in 83. It took, and then the movie was made in 90.
Okay. Yeah. So smoking, so much smoking. Oh my god.
Yeah.
The level of smoking in this made me think it took place in the 70s.
Yeah. That just shows you how much our world has changed.
Yeah, it has. Like, they're smoking in the hospital. Not just in the doctor's office, not just in the waiting room. Like, oh, you're in the hospital because you had a heart attack? Cool. You're lighting up. That's fine. That's okay. That's just a scene that happens in the film.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, that's such a thing. But yeah, this is my favorite of the trilogy. I think this is the most sound. Yeah. So the guy in the basement is possessed by a serial killer who died 15 years ago, and he is continuing this killing spree and wants the media to know about it.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting concept that because he's in a mental hospital, that he can manipulate the minds of the frail and the insane, because these are good vessels for him to carry out his murders.
Yeah,
and it's something that I've always thought scary, plausible.
It made complete sense to me, because like they showed him in a straitjacket, like locked up in a room, and they were like, yeah, we keep him under lock and key. Here's all the security. And then they finally meet him, and it's like he's the guy getting out. Like, no, something else is going on. What else could be happening? We have a loony bin. Sorry for anyone who knows anyone that was ever in a loony bin. I don't mean offense by that, but that's...
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say right now.
No, complete buzzkill, but it's okay.
Yeah, it is. I feel like I'm doing something wrong by saying loony bin, but I also, insane asylum doesn't... You know what? Let's just move on from that. So having him joint possess Father Karras and someone else. New rules. Different thing that has not happened yet in the series. Wow, how do you feel? Does the book talk about that? Does it take, like, his neural activity increases but his vital signs decrease because he's always attached to monitors.
Yeah, they kind of go into a little bit about him being the body of Karis, and the book does a little better job of getting him back into the. They take a whole thing about trying to save the body and everything, because this is wrong, and this is a desecration of a great priest who did such an important role in the first movie.
Yeah,
but I think he did a lot more with the screenplay because he doesn't go into the ends of the movie the same way, because it stops right when they get the demon to stop. They don't do an exorcism like they do in the movie.
Yeah, there is an exorcism at the very end.
Like, yeah, it's good though. It's a good exorcism. It's creepy, and the special effects are amazing.
Yeah, it really is good. They really did sell that. Like, I'm happy with that. But yeah, the priest from South America, just like, he's in one other scene, I think. Was it just one other scene?
Yeah, the other scene that he's like basically
in the background,
praying.
like just kind of like there.
They show him in the thing praying.
Yeah, that's it. And
he just shows up, and like at the loony bin, like
he's just like, I heard you need a priest.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah, things don't go so well for him, but he does a good job.
Yeah, but he pulled it off.
Yeah.
But Father Karras,
and that just goes with something that I read in like the original Exorcist that talked about historically. A third to half of all the priests die, go insane, or get possessed. And so now we've had 3 movies, and we've seen enough to validate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is not easy stuff. You're playing with... Okay, so to quote Mean Streets, because I also like gangster movies.
Okay.
There's a line in the movie, Mean Streets. Don't fuck with the infinite.
I can respect that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
We've talked about the good.
Yeah.
And now let's get to the,
and the better.
Bad and the ugly.
The good and the better.
And the bad and the ugly. Because if we're going to talk about the rest of the Exorcist movies, we got the bad and then we got the ugly. And,
yeah, we do.
And because the ugly are definitely the prequels, at least this one. This one is ugly, but let's talk about the second, the Heretic, Exodus to the Heretic.
I don't own a physical
you really
copy
want to
of
bash
this.
it, and then go ahead.
I would show it on the screen, but no, that is not allowed in my house. That movie is the worst.
Yeah, unless you're smoking crack, because I have seen a few people online that love it, but it's stinky. The movie.
Yeah.
If you took it out of the whole Exorcist thing and it was a standalone movie, it might be a cheesy B film.
It wouldn't make any sense.
It would not make sense because
it. Okay, if you recap, look, my statement earlier about how the entire cast of the Exorcist trilogy, the 1, 2, 3, do an amazing job. They don't phone a single scene in. They the acting is in no way my fucking problem on these films.
No,
because they're all really good at what they're doing. They are selling every scene as if it's really happening.
And because they bring back Linda Blair, who was the girl from the original movie.
Yeah, did a great job in 2.
This second movie is not her fault. No, she does a really great job.
You can't blame a shitty script or editor for that. That's what happened here. I don't know.
And there's no amount of imagery to save it. All the doves and the locusts and
oh my God,
and even James Earl Jones cannot save this movie.
Yeah. So Mufasa, Darth Vader.
Yeah, this came out in '77, the same year as Star Wars. Darth Vader. So James Earl Jones was busy this. Yeah, James Earl Jones was busy.
So he doesn't know the riddle of steel yet.
I just thought I'd go there.
Oh, God damn it. Okay, well, it's baby James. Yeah, not a bad actor. They got James Earl Jones. They knew what the fuck they were doing. He's amazing. Yeah, that movie is some hot garbage. First of all, I love me some Star Trek DS9. I do. Jack Nicholson, amazing actor. He has been in so many good films. The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, for example. It's a great film. But you know what DS9 and The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest have in common? One of the most evil actresses on the fucking planet is what they have in common. Because I'm sure in the real life, in the real world, you and me here, hi, we're having a conversation, we're hanging out, we're friends, drinking beers. We made garbage plates together earlier today because we were talking about different beers and New York came up and we were just like, yeah, we need 2 proteins. We need home fries. We need macaroni salad. We need potato salad. We need meat sauce. We need bratwursts. We need all these things. Andrew is vegan. I am not. So we did a vegan version and a regular version for just ourselves. And then my wife came home. It was a great fucking
It was
day.
great.
Yeah. I really like that mustard.
But you're about to talk about Nurse Ratched, so.
Yeah. Kai Wen, I don't want to know your real name. I am sure you're a wonderful person. But currently, I now have a third thing to add to my list of characters that you played that are pieces of shit. And I say this in all seriousness because the opening scene in this movie makes everything your fault. None of the events of this film would happen if you didn't go up to Reagan and be like, hey, I got a strobe light and I got a headband. Let me slap those on you. And you know, you've been coping really well with your past trauma and you've been growing as a person. You seem like a healthy, functional, like teenage, close to adult figure that still goes to school. So we assume high school, but might be college. We don't know. They didn't actually say. Yeah.
She's a rich girl living in New York.
On her own.
Yeah.
With a maid.
No.
It's a maid in the first film. It's a maid in this film.
She's not a maid. She's a friend.
Okay, whatever. Maid.
Sharon.
So she's adjusting. She's acclimated so well. She's doing better with her life having been possessed by a fucking demon than I am personally in my own life.
Yeah. But there's a premise that just does not work in this movie.
But then
because
Nurse
the demon
Ratched
was supposed to have left.
Yeah, the demon did leave. The demon got up, got out, went into Father Karras, went down the stairs. The events of the second film tell us that
it's still lingering.
It's still lingering. But the events of the third film say that
it didn't.
Yeah,
they
gone.
Don't connect. There is so much that makes no sense.
It's so awful.
Also, let's just go into all the scenes in Africa. They don't go with the prequels that we're about to talk about.
They don't go with the first film that we watched where he was literally in freaking the Middle East, Iraq. He was in Iraq.
But that was in the 70s, and in the 60s he was doing missions work as an archaeologist in Africa.
No, let me stop you. Because if that's true, if you're right, if they're saying that the 60s were Africa and then the 70s were the Middle East and then the 70s were the exorcism thing. The problem is they establish in the first film, because why the fuck else would you show me a flashback of a thing unless it directly ties to the story? So you're showing me the thing in Iraq.
Because when he sees
Andrew, I'm sorry. I am not done.
Yeah.
They show us the flashback in Iraq in the first film, meaning that the demon that is in Reagan comes from Iraq. So to say that he's then in the second film dealing with the same demon inside of the same person that's coming from Africa now, because these cultures are identical. Iraqi people look just like people from Africa. That's what this movie is saying.
No, and you get this in the beginning,
which I have not seen.
Huh?
Which I have not seen.
No. So
and my point:
simple.
Movies should tie directly into themselves, and if you can't explain it in 90 minutes, maybe it doesn't need to fucking happen. Could be 2 hours.
Yeah, but Father Marin. So the backstory of the guy who has the heart attack in the first movie.
Yeah.
He originally there are 2 prequels because they started filming one and they didn't like it, so they did the other one. But the first one, when they actually finished it, was better. It's called Dominion. The other one is called Exorcist: The Beginning. Exorcist: The Beginning is not excellent because it chops and it moves up around. Because they were trying.
I'll just show it to the camera while you talk.
They were trying to take the story that moves a little slower in what's now called Dominion. So Father Merrin from the first movie was originally in the Netherlands in World War II, and he has a tragic experience in his village when the Nazis come in. So he loses his faith and ends up as an archaeologist in Africa. And they don't explain it as well in Dominion as they do in Beginnings, but what happened was sometime during the Byzantine Empire, which is the extension of the Roman Empire, they were trying at the very expanses of their empire to house a demon that was evil. And why this ties in with Iraq is everything was like the Middle East back then. So Pazuzu was locked in a prison of some sort for the demons.
Pazuzu?
Yeah.
We learned his name in the second movie.
Yeah,
that's the only relevance of the second film.
Yeah. But the thing about the second movie is it's set in Ethiopia, and both the prequels are set in Kenya, and it's a completely different story.
So wait. We have Iraq, Ethiopia, and Kenya.
Yeah.
Pazuzu is from one of 3. Vote now in your cell phones as to which country Pazuzu is from.
Because William Peter Blatty's director, who does the commentary on the original movies, even says this is a real demon who has correlations with Iraq. But somehow in the 6th century, 5th century, they house him in this enclosure somewhere in Kenya. And then when Marin is down there doing some excavation of an archaeological site, the demon comes out, and you have 2 different versions. I say you don't have to watch the one he just showed you at the beginnings because it's a choppy movie. If you want to watch the prequel to everything, go with Dominion. It's a little slower, but it's a much better story, and it tells everything in a much better way. And the backstory in that follows and goes with the movies better than the backstory in the second movie, which I think we can agree is the weakest of the whole entire canon.
Yeah. Movie 2, worst.
Yeah. So, like I said,
they would have to try really hard in Dominion or the beginning.
Yeah. Well, we had the good, the bad, and the ugly.
They have to try really hard. Really, like, I'm going to watch them just to find out. Is this as horrible as The Exorcist 2? And I don't just say horrible in this franchise. I really mean that. Like, I've seen a worse film in the horror genre, but no. I'm done now. I think I've finished my point.
Yeah. And so, there you have it. We've got 5 movies to choose from in the Exorcist canon, with what's about to come out as a reboot that's going to be a trilogy. So when all is said and done, you're going to have 8 movies that go in the Exorcist canon, which puts it up there with the other great horror.
Yeah, it's right there with Friday the 13th
and Halloween and all the other ones. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a slow burn. It's not flashy, but they've been steady.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
And just getting back to this one, the OG. This.
Oh, you mean this one?
The OG.
This one
was the highest grossing horror film until 2017's It.
I mean,
And
it's a good movie.
There's reasons for that. That all like almost 40 years, it was the top of the charts.
Yeah.
So I basically feel at this point we can start talking about the other movies.
I just, real quick before we move on to the other movies, I want to ask you real quick. Is there a largest notable difference between the two good movie adaptations and the books? Like major difference, major thing that like if you having read both and watched both,
you're talking about
what's your big thing where it's like, man, you know, the Bem Dilladong showed up in the book and he's a musical number and I appreciate that. Why wasn't he in this serious movie tone?
No, like I still go with my original statements. Nothing from the original Exorcist. I mean, this is a camera here, right?
You're pointing down at you.
No, like I said, only minor details with this. His screenplay follows it. I just said that if you read the book, there are things that he didn't get a chance to detail. This, very different. It is, a lot of things are the same, but he's on tangents, and it's about, there are a lot of characters in the book that are not in the movie. And it stops abruptly, and you don't get the exorcism or any of the end, which are beautiful things. And he wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he had 7 years to work on that.
So, yeah. Okay. So, I think that close enough to answer my question, as I will say, what's the subtext to The Exorcist to you?
So, William Peter Blatty being a devout Catholic.
Yeah.
He is acknowledging the presence of evil in the world and just chronicling the battle between good and evil on so many levels. And you have his heroes, the detective Kinderman, who's in both books, and the priests, because he was Catholic. You have crisis of faith with them, but ultimately you see their human sides, but yet they are still avengers of good. And I feel even though he's not, amazing in the third movie, he just shows up and he's there. And it's like in the 11th hour, the Exorcist shows up. Well, the first time I saw that, I was just like, oh my gosh, everything's going to be okay because the Exorcist is here. That's the way William Peter Blatty intended you to think. Because I think he had a lot of respect for these people. Because the Exorcists are back and they're taking charge of stuff. Cool. Ultimately, they're still human and they can't get everything done, but they still do the groundwork. Which is what, as we tie into the other movies that are done later, you don't always get.
Mm-hmm. More just there for the scares.
Yeah.
But no, having the same author, 2 books, 2 movies, like, that's good. It's a cohesive, like, tone for you. I dig that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a note right there. So, we were going to talk about Rosemary's Baby and things that are more Exorcist adjacent, because I feel like that is the sounding note for our talk about the Exorcist original trilogy.
We were talking about possession and horror films and everything last episode, and Charles had never seen this movie.
Yeah,
and so while The Exorcist is the top grossing one, this movie that came out in 1968 is the OG of the modern horror film, and for good reason. It's a slow burn, and it's so good. And
Yeah.
before we get into this, Roman Polanski was involved in this. So, and this is the development. This is in '66. His tie-in is, I don't know if you know, he had a lot to do with other things that happened in the '60s in L.A.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just going to leave the viewer to tie those knots.
Yeah.
Because we don't need to talk about any of that.
I mean, some people's grandparents were cool. Other people's grandparents weren't. Here we are now.
Yeah.
But no, Rosemary's Baby was a movie.
Yeah. Now that I've seen it multiple times,
Yeah, I think from having watched it, like the old couple that lived in down the hall or whatever, man.
Yeah, this is a creepy.
I love them.
If I could say that The Exorcist has slightly gothic qualities, this movie is purely gothic.
Yeah,
right down to the apartment complex, everything.
But like at the same time, like their wardrobe, like
Yeah.
1960s, like hot pink suit coming back from like the theater with his wife, who, like, I swear to God, the original owner of the Cigar Bar I used to manage, when he passed away, his widow started trying to run the things for about a year, and then she hired me, and I became the manager eventually within like 2 years. She was Margot. She was this chain smoking, owned a cigar shop woman that I used to know, where it's just like, you just have bigger, poofier hair. Like all of this, that is you.
Yeah.
Like it.
But
that was the thing.
yeah, so we have a whole why it's such a good horror film, and there's obviously the possession theme with everything, because I mean, she's carrying the baby of a demon, or actually the Satan. It's the Antichrist. Allegedly. But anyway, she knows what's happening to her, and nobody outside is willing to believe it because it's so ridiculous. But inside of the coven, subtly, they are manipulating everything. And it's so creepy because of that.
And the way the film is shot and the way the story is told, you're led to believe at first that maybe she is going a little crazy. Like maybe she's wrong. Maybe this isn't happening. Maybe it's just, it's fine. It's just the neighbor lady. I guess I do have to drink this drink. I guess my doctor does want me to do these things. I guess.
But unless you are totally naive enough to think that the chocolate mousse that came over wasn't drugged.
Yeah.
And the subsequent scene when you see the gross satanic hands holding her as she's being taken advantage of, if you don't follow that closely, you could go into his whole, they're out to get me and I'm insane. But if you've seen it before and you're watching it and you're paying close attention for the subtle scenes where everything starts to not be normal again. Yeah. Her husband is a struggling actor, and he takes up with these Satanists to further his career. He basically sacrifices her for his well-being, and it does not have a good ending at all.
But we don't know that going into it.
No.
We come into it where they're a young couple in love, and they're looking at these apartments, trying to find a place in New York and getting out of their old lease, and they're striving and they're happy, and then they're like get there and they're like, and this is where we're gonna make a baby. Ba-ba-da boom boom.
Yeah. And my favorite character is, of course, their friend, the writer, who the coven gets rid of quickly because he's on to everything.
Yeah.
And when she's sitting there talking to the Dr. Hill, the straight man, who is not involved in all this, and you think he's buying it all, but one call to the satanic doctor just dissuades any doubts he might have that because he's convinced that she's nuts. And at this point, it's too late for Mia Farrow's character.
Yeah, it's kind of the only like inevitable ending to that. It's either that or she gets away and like even if you remade it, like they did remake it, haven't watched the remake. Next time we get here, I guess we'll have to talk about the remake. But like the only other way this could end is a jump scare at the end where all the cultists are coming after her and she doesn't really get away. Otherwise,
No.
It's a boring ending.
No. I think what makes this so scary is they're acting like everything is okay. They've got control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
They have the upper hand. And that's so creepy. They're not worried about anything.
Yeah.
They feel like they got it going on.
But in a way, isn't that just kind of like a lot of people today where they just don't care? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So,
yeah. What else do we have going on here?
I did a lot of research for this, so I tried to watch everything in the gambit of the movies that I was told had to do with possession. And so these movies, the Ouija movies, the only reason that they get to go on the possession thing is the second movie, which is the prequel. Yeah, where they go back into the house.
I've seen the first one, but not
the second one. You realize that everybody that's connecting with them through the Ouija board are the original people in The Origin of Evil. This is mother and her daughters, and the mother's a medium, and they're friends with the priest who, when he realizes all the stuff that's about to go down, inadvertently tries to do an exorcism that just goes sideways, and that's why it counts as an exorcism movie. But these are scary movies that stand alone. Yeah, it's their own, but they have a tie-in, and that's why they're in there. But what I really want to talk about is The Last Exorcism.
Real quick, if you're gonna go on about those, can I see the blue? No, I have it right here. Right here. Because this was on the list.
Yes.
And so we watched it last time after we finished recording. The witch, Black Bart. Hey, what's up, girl? We already said spoiler warning, so doesn't matter. You can just know that we're gonna spoil some shit. We're now just talking about movies. Freeform.
Yeah. This is not so much an exorcism movie, more of a possession movie.
Yeah. There is no actual exorcism in that. So Andrew's list, I'm going to deduct 1 point.
No, I start realizing why is that demon possession just is close enough to that. But that movie also does make the list of the best horror films ever.
It is a really tap dancing good horror film. Boy howdy. I enjoyed the shit out of that. That is suspenseful. That is intense. I loved their shift in art style, which so if you haven't seen it, I already told you, fuck off. They shoot it like a dream sequence. And it seems off and not quite of the real world. And then you start to think, this didn't happen. Clearly they're going to wake up and things are going to go back to instantly, boom, thing hard reinforcing that weird shot. Boom,
and
secondary thing.
That every single member of the family just about gets killed off. You kind of hope that's a dream sequence.
Yeah, and they just hard hammer in, no, this shit happened. And then at the very end, the last scene, they go into that art style again. I'm just like, you motherfuckers, you assholes. I was watching, you had a pattern, I was picking up on it, and here we are, like, isn't she a witch? Don't know.
Yeah.
Were people just like, I've heard theories on the internet about like bacteria getting into things, and that's like what caused people to go crazy in the Middle Ages when like they would bake bread that didn't quite kill the hallucinogenic mold or whatever. Like, did that happen? Is that what this movie actually is? I don't know.
I don't either. But it's creepy and scary.
It's great. It's really good. Like I hope you all agree with me. Otherwise, I'm just like this asshole.
Yeah. So, I wish I could give you the same feedback on these, but The Last Exorcism, yeah, done up. It's a mockumentary, and we'll talk about some other ones because I've got a lot of these exorcism movies are done like documentaries. But here we have a Protestant televangelist who just, it's all smoke and mirrors. And Charles and I were liking about how he was just giving, just to show nobody listening to him, he is giving it in a sermon his mother's recipe for biscuits and gravy, right? Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah. So, long story short, the first Last Exorcism movie has him trying to stage a fake exorcism only to have there be something real there. And the movie goes sideways quickly. There's Satanism.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of stuff. I'm not trying to ruin it because some of these movies I want people to go see, just like I didn't ruin The Last Exorcism.
Yeah, I ruined the shit out of the witch. I'm sorry.
And so when we get to the second one, set in New Orleans.
Orleans?
Yeah, New Orleans. The girl from the first exorcism in those movies, she's trying to deal with her life after everything went in the first movie. And tie in with a voodoo kind of exorcism. Yeah. At some later point, we're going to talk about non-Western approaches to demonism, and I will look at voodoo because not all demons are evil in their culture, but this one clearly was. Because I read a book since we last hung out called Mumbo Jumbo, which was by Ishmael Reed in the 70s, that's set in the 1920s in Harlem. And they have an exorcism when they're trying to pull a demon out of a girl, and it's kind of very low-key. They call them Laos, L-A-O. And this place that they were all hanging out, they had little, I guess, devotee homes for all of their little demons because they kind of worship them in their culture. And I don't really know everything about voodooism, and I think it goes back to a joke that Charles might have made in the first episode about the good demons and the bad demons, because it sounds like in their culture they are both. And there's another movie that is supposed to rival The Exorcist called The Wailing, which I have not seen yet. Gonna get my hands on it, and I don't think necessarily this is gonna be our next episode, but when we come back to revisit everything that goes with it, I want to be able to look at what the other outside world beyond, America considers the best exorcism movie on some levels. It's called The Wailing.
Okay. I look forward to checking that out.
Yeah. So we didn't get to watch The Exorcism Emily Rose, but I just want to say it's still one of the creepiest movies that I've seen, and he says he saw it as well a long time ago, so we will revisit it based on a real exorcism that happened in Germany. So we're seeing everything that goes with real things. Same with The Rite, based on real exorcism and stuff that happened with the Vatican. And if that's not enough, I don't know when we're going to stream this and when this is going to be available, but
I mean, we're streaming it right now.
Yeah, so but I mean, in terms of when it's edited,
no one's watching.
No,
but we are streaming it.
Yeah. So the Pope's Exorcist is out and will be out for a while, and it's all based on supposedly real exorcisms that were dealt with by Vatican aligned exorcist. Why I want to mention this movie is we've had 50 years since the original OG Exorcist to perfect an exorcist and an exorcism, and this movie has the most intense exorcism of any movie I've seen. It's long. It's basically takes up 40% of the movie. It's that intense. The only thing that might be more intense that I can think of is this movie right here, The Exorcism of God. It's set in Mexico, and there's a lot of twists going on. But the priest has to go back and face the same demon that he faced. And he has a challenge because he has wagers going in. I don't want to ruin these movies because if you've not seen them, I recommend them. I also recommend The Devil Inside. Scary, freaky. If you want to see a movie that has 3 exorcisms in it, there you go. Yeah, 3 exorcisms, not 1, not 2, but 3.
Okay.
And tying into a lot that goes on with Italy, because Italy is where the Catholic Church is obviously headquartered in the Vatican. And I was able to watch a documentary recently called Return of the Exorcist that's talking about how in Italian culture they feel with the rise of neo-paganism and the occult that they have a lot more demon possession than ever. And it's a documentary, but it's a pretty good, intense thing where you get to see a lot that's going on. And other than that, the only other movies I watched outside of the Exorcist canon were one called The Vatican Tapes, which is done like a documentary, but it ties in with a very similar tie to Rosemary's Baby with a Vatican priest coming in to do an exorcism of a woman, and it's scary. So, before we tie this up, you said you might have seen this movie, but another movie that I watched was called The Possession Experiment.
Okay.
The movie starts with a very intense exorcism, and then they go into a classroom 20 years later. A lot of things you should never do, but I'll say is you should never want to be possessed, and you should never start a GoFundMe page.
Okay.
And you shouldn't play with Ouija boards that you find in walls of houses that are sacredly possessed.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Fact.
So a lot of bad things happen in the possession experiment. And if you have to get a demon out of somebody, don't just get a medium. Because the one they get is actually a legion of Satan who is there to enhance the demon.
Old chestnut.
Yeah, it's going back to the whole thing I said about don't fuck with the infinite.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
I, doing research, also found some really good podcasts from actual priests who do exorcism, and I think it's called the Exorcist podcast, and then the Exorcist Files. These are, I think you can find them on Spotify. One of them is done up, and the episodes are done really well, and you get to see experiences where they kind of take real cases and make them into stories that are very approachable.
Okay.
But they don't mince words. And they show that this is real, which is what we've been saying the whole time. So if you want more beyond the movies, get on Spotify and put in Exorcism. You'll find some of these podcasts, and they're exciting. Good listens.
Right on.
Yeah. So
cool.
There's a lot out there.
Good plug.
I tried to get a good cross-section of all the movies about exorcism, and I'm still interested in the subject, and we'll visit it at a later point. But I thought we could close kind of with just a little bit of looking at what's going on, because I did lean into this on the first episode. So the Catholic Church with the rite of exorcism looks at exorcism going with straight up demon possession, but any demon manipulation and lesser instances, they call the process of deliverance to remove them. That why this is interesting is the Protestants have a segment of them that are involved in what's called deliverance ministry. And a minister down in Tennessee at a Baptist church called Greg Locke has a very, very, very vibrant ministry where he is casting out demons left and right. And I mean left and right. They had a movie that just hit the theaters 2 weeks ago called Come Out in the Name of Jesus. That was the 4th grossing movie in the country that night.
Okay.
So they only showed it 2 nights. Obviously not off nights, but those are the nights that theaters are going to show them. So we're looking at movies about exorcism. But apparently it's also very real.
Okay. I mean, if anyone out there that finds this audio recording or video recording or whatever this may be somewhere someday, and you know more about exorcisms, or if you are an exorcist, or you want to come on and talk,
yeah,
we would love to have you.
Yeah. Like I said, I hope we can, because I have some connections. We're going to hopefully talk to an exorcist and somebody that's a deliverance minister. And we're going to look at exorcism in other cultures. And we're just going to look at maybe some of the TV shows.
And if you've been possessed and you want to talk about your experience,
we'd love to talk to you.
That's a side of this that not a lot of people go after. But if you're comfortable going on about whatever may have happened, hello.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Paschke. And thank you for tuning in to Apparition Dimension.
All things considered horribly.
Have a good night.